This was a hellishly difficult exam. The test was taken by a group of primary school students. How could this be done? Let's see how hard it was. An elephant and a giant alpaca were falling at the same time, and you could only save one. Which one would you save? It's like if your mother and wife fall into the river at the same time. As a husband and a son, which one should you save? Stephen was the youngest of the 32 students present. At the age of 8, he was a brilliant thinker and had never followed the rules. He had read tens of thousands of books at a very young age. There was a hard problem with the meeting of the trains, and he was able to calculate in a second when two trains would meet. At this moment, Stephen only thought for 5 seconds and realized that the solution was to save both animals. Stephen chose to save the elephant. The elephant was big enough to catch the alpaca. It was a tough question but an easy answer. Only primary school student could come up with a unique answer, with a strange mindset. It was an entrance exam for a school for the gifted. The average IQ of the 32 students present was 160. If they passed the 4 rounds, they would be admitted to the world's top school, Shipwrights Academy. In the first round, there were 99 questions, all related to maths and logic. After 60 minutes, the female examiners immediately collected the papers, and she marked the papers on the spot. After a few minutes, the examiner stood up and announced the names of students who would advance to the next round. Stephen. The examiner only read Stephen's name and left the room. The students in the room were baffled. That's it. Just one person had been advanced. Stephen was puzzled too. He was so lucky. The next round of exams got tougher and tougher. The second round of exams was very strict. No talking was allowed in the exam room. If someone talked, he'd be treated as a cheat. No one was allowed to talk in this exam. The lady examiner said this exam would take a long time, and every question would be difficult. A little girl sighed when she heard that. Didn't I say you can't talk?
I just groaned.
You're talking again. Please leave. The examiner's attitude was unquestionable. The girl had no choice but to leave the exam room. She made this move to warn the others, and scared everyone into keeping their mouths shut. Now the second round of the exam began. They had 60 minutes to complete it. The female examiner advised them to read the questions carefully. If they made one mistake, they'd be eliminated. A young boy read the paper, and was so dizzy that he vomited after he left the exam room. How hard was this question? Stephen was uneasy. He read the paper, and it was a question related to history. Oh, my God, that was a tough question. Even a PhD student would have to think for half an hour. Stephen frowned, and decided to leave the question blank. And the next question, he was dumbfounded again. This was an unusual exam. It was a course designed for primary school students but at the level of university students. Stephen was just a schoolboy. Even though he had read many books before, he had never seen any of these specialized books. And the other students were also puzzled. But at that moment, a girl in Stephen's front seat finished all the questions. When she handed in her paper, she threw a slip with all the answers at Stephen's feet. It turned out that her pencil accidentally fell down the drain just before the second round of exams. The exam started in 4 minutes, and other candidates rushed to take the test. No one helped her. By then, Stephen stopped in front of her. She asked him for help getting her pencil out, but Stephen said,
We don't need to get it back.
We can use the same one. There will be pencil sharpeners in the exam room. After saying that, Stephen broke the pencil in his hand and gave it to the girl. So this note was her repayment to him. Would you accept cheating on a test if you didn't know how to write the answers? When Stephen received the note, he kicked it away without thinking. It was fine if he couldn't answer the questions, but he would never cheat. Time was ticking away, and there were only 15 minutes left. Stephen hadn't written any. Suddenly, he remembered what the lady examiner had said. Read all the questions carefully. He suddenly realized something. He went through all the questions immediately. He realized that the next questions were the answers to the previous ones, and the questions in the front were the answers to the questions in the back. So this exam was to test the student's ability to be meticulous. Stephen started to write the answers. As soon as the clock ran out, he answered all the questions and handed the paper over to the lady examiner. The lady examiner still judged the papers on the spot and chose a qualified candidate, Stephen. Stephen was shocked. He was the only one who passed the exam again. After the other students were eliminated and left, Stephen sat in the exam room, waiting for 3 more students who had passed the second round in different exam rooms. The students were all geniuses. The one in blue was called Paste, but he was not Paste. He was a genius who could not forget anything. The girl in the green hat was Kate, a circus performer. She carried around a red poke with a torch, rope, glue, and others, to prepare her for anything. And there were two other students with great looks, Johnson and Kelly. At this moment, the lady examiner appeared, and took the 5 of them to a secret room. This was the 3rd round of exams. The examiner was a bearded man. The first to take the test was the confident and proud Kelly. She walked into the secret room. On the floor, it was written that she could walk to the opposite side of the room without stepping on any black or white squares. As far as she could see, black and white squares made up the most of the room, and the yellow squares of different colors were 5 steps away from her. She couldn't even jump, nor could she fly. So, Kelly was confident that the only way to pass this round was to say no. This was an incredible exam. Kelly told the bearded man, "This mission is impossible.
The test is an attempt to trick us."
So my answer is no." Kelly thought she would pass. Unexpectedly, the bearded man said coldly,
"You may go home now."
Kelly paid for her pride and arrogance, and ran out of the room with her face covered in shame. Next up was Paste. He was a very good word reader, and had found a flaw in the rules. Since he couldn't step, he crawled. So Paste crawled across the room, on his elbows and knees. The third was Kate. With her acrobatic skills, she was definitely different from the others. She threw a rope over the opposite doorknob, and tied it between the 2 doors. Then she stepped on the rope, and walked across the room. The 4th was Johnson. He was a typically minded, stupid kid. He used his bouncing ability to jump around on the yellow squares to reach the opposite side of the room. The last one was Stephen. He didn't move right away. He was a genius. Stephen used his naked eye as a ruler. He realized that 2 adjacent sides of a square were not the same length. The short side of the square was 35 inches, and the wide side is 43 inches, so it wasn't actually a square, but a rectangle. Stephen walked to the opposite, with no trouble at all. The bearded man took the 4 who passed to the next exam room. They went through a section of underground waterway, and drilled through a sewerage cover to a villa. The 4 of them entered the villa, and saw a maze. And the next moment, the girl who dropped her pencil suddenly appeared here. She was the examiner of the 4th round exam. She dressed up as a student to test whether they were kind. At this moment, the girl announced the rules of the exam. They had to escape the maze in 5 minutes, then climb the stairs, and rang the bell on the top floor. It was important to note that only the first 3 to ring the bell would pass the test, and the girl specially hinted that the 4
should be able to do this with your eyes closed.
At this moment, the bell was ringing. The global top exam officially began. The 4 students scattered at different entrances. Paste used all of his advantage. He mapped the maze by walking and counting to find the dead ends of the maze, and the only thing left was the way to the stairs. Johnson, who was lazy, followed Batter all the way. Kelly was a straightforward person. She couldn't grasp anything logical, so she took out a screwdriver and unscrewed the vent screen. She took down the grill and got into the air duct. She slapped down the obstacles and headed for the stairs. Stephen, on the other hand, was meticulous. He found 4 different arrows on each door frame, up, left, right, and down, and the arrows on each door frame were in the same order. Stephen suddenly thought of the girl saying, "You could pass this round with your eyes closed." Stephen instantly thought of the key to cracking it. He touched the arrows. He realized that the arrowhead had braille in the shape of an arrow, so braille was the right way to escape. It was a test only a genius could pass. Stephen quickly escaped the maze by following the braille directions, but then Paste, who had also escaped, was overtaken by Johnson. He knocked Paste down the stairs, then he ran up and rang the bell. Stephen heard the sound and came right away. They only had 15 seconds left to ring the bell. Stephen helped Paste to climb up the stairs, and they went overtime. They took 5 minutes and 10 seconds. Only Johnson rang the bell. Kate was the first to arrive, but she didn't ring the bell. She waited for Stephen and Paste to ring it with her. So, the 3 of them smiled and rang the bell at the same time. The lady examiner announced that Johnson had been eliminated and could leave. Johnson didn't understand very well. He was the first one to ring the bell. The lady examiner said,
"And these were the first 3 to ring the bell."
"Unless you ring it with the other 2. Johnson got angry and left the villa cursing. If a mom and wife fell into the river at the same time, as a man who was both a husband and a son, which one should he save first? The 3 who passed the test were all geniuses. The lady examiner took them to a secret room. They met Professor Benedetti, a man who knew ethics, morals, and science. At that moment, another young girl passed the test. Her name was Cindy. She didn't use her knowledge at all. She just drew a cross when she couldn't answer a question. She had 50 pencils hanging from her shirt, and she let the girl who lost her pencils choose one. When she couldn't get out of the maze, she ate a sandwich. Such a different kind of student was perfect for the mission. It turned out that these 4 rounds of exams were not entrance exams at all. Benedetti created it to select the agents. He wants 4 geniuses to complete a mission to save the world. The end. This movie is called The Mysterious Benedict Society. This is a good movie. I recommend watching the full movie. Well, that's it for today's episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye.